Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun, March 7th, 2024. As we talk about the seals of Revelation, the end times, the events that the four horsemen of the apocalypse are going to bring upon us, and, as to the question of whether we're in the seals, has the first seal been revealed? Some people strongly think it has, including Steve Ciccolanti, who suggests that the first seal was really the whole coronavirus pandemic, which was the first truly worldwide sort of event since Noah's flood, if you will. Even World War One, World War Two, they were fought in Europe. They weren't really fought. They weren't fought in Australia, and other countries and nations necessarily. So the coronavirus, the pandemic, was truly the first kind of worldwide thing that affected everybody on Earth. And so, is that the first seal? Possibly. And if that is the first seal, is the second seal coming, which is this peace is removed, violence, and the red horse. Russia is red. If you look at their flag there, is this Russia and the triggering of World War III? Well, could very well be. Now, I posted on the community page this image here, and this is something you need to remember. You can survive 3 minutes without air. Okay, you can survive 3 hours without shelter. That's, if it's in the middle of winter or something, 3 hours. After 3 hours, you're getting pretty cold, right? You can survive 3 days without water. And you can survive 30 days without food, or maybe 3 weeks, if you will, to keep the rule of three going. Plus minus, depending on where you are. These are going to change slightly, but the general rule of thumb is that air, shelter, water, and then food, depending on exposure, etc. So something to keep in mind in terms of your preparations. Do you have something to filter your air? Will you have access to fresh air should things go sideways? Now, for most of us, that's just going to mean step outside. But some of you do need air filters. If you live in the middle of a city or something, and all of a sudden people start burning wood, maybe you need an air filter. 3 hours without shelter. Do you have shelter? If a hurricane goes through and your shelter is destroyed, do you have another shelter? Do you have a bomb shelter, a tornado shelter that you can go into to provide a little bit of warmth and something outside of the elements? Water, do you have water storage? Do you have a way to get the water if there is no electricity? Do you have backup water pumps? Do you have a river nearby that you can maybe get water out of to boil? Bottles of water if you live in a city, especially if you live in a high rise, that requires the pumping of water up to your apartment. And food, of course. Do you have food? Now, I posted this video as well. This is the video Grid Down, Power Up. It's a documentary about what could happen in the United States if the grid goes down, and how could it potentially go down, either with a EMP, a solar flare, a Carrington type event that takes out all the power stations, in this case the transformer you see on fire there, or is it an EMP from a nuclear weapon that North Korea could launch from a ship? Iran could, Russia could, China could. How easy is it to lob a dirty nuke of sorts over top the U.S.? It doesn't have to hit anywhere. It just has to explode above the U.S. somewhere, and it would destroy a part and even cause cascading failures out to the rest of the network. So are you ready for a grid down event? And it's an interesting documentary to watch. There's lots of them. There's various resources you can find about the results of that. But at the end of the day, and I've said it before, Russia, China, they don't have to take us out with nuclear weapons on the ground, destroying buildings, killing people necessarily. All they have to do is take out our infrastructure, take out our electricity. That would take down cell phone networks. That would take down the internet. That would mean we don't have fresh water. There would be civil unrest. It would be Mad Max, as it would be man against man, one on one, and roving gangs. And they said it correctly in this video. Those who had access to firearms, whether legal or illegal, and the will and the interest and the want and the desperation to go and steal food from others. Those are the ones that are going to survive. And if you don't have a firearm at that time, you're probably not going to survive. That's just what happens when things go Wild West, when things go Mad Max. And it would be, it would be enough for the National Guard to control the population of the United States or Canada, let alone trying to support, World War III and going to fight another nation. The nation would collapse from the inside, and economically they would be destroyed. So you don't even have to fire a bullet. And I've said that before. Is Europe and Germany getting ready for World War III? Well, here's a couple of examples. This is a zero hedge. Europe is alarmed enough to begin wargaming a food crisis. With Ukraine in the middle of war, the breadbasket of Europe, absolutely. They've been wargaming this for a long time. This wouldn't be anything new, that's for sure. But are you wargaming for your own food crisis? Are you ready to feed your family should supply chains get cut? Remember what happened during the pandemic? Toilet paper was in short supply. You could not get yeast off the shelf or flour. All of a sudden, everybody started getting raw ingredients and started baking because they were stuck at home. They had nothing better to do. But what would happen if, in a grid down event, in a societal collapse, where people were desperate, not just getting yeast and flour for just because they were bored, but because they were desperate to eat? It would be a crazy situation. And that's why you need to have all these products, items, food stores before something happens. Because when that thing happens, you're not going to be able to find it on the shelf. And there's a picture there of, the bread aisle. There's no bread on the shelves. And it's going to be far worse than this when World War III kicks off. All right, Germany. This is a German minister, healthcare minister. He says, German healthcare system should prepare for war. Germany must improve its healthcare system to be able to swiftly respond to crisis situations such as a new pandemic or a military conflict. Karl Lauterbach said. So there you go. Nations in Europe are getting ready because they know what's coming. They lived through World War I, World War II, and the same is happening there. The story is repeating itself. We think we're isolated and insulated from that in North America. Not necessarily with ballistic missiles, intercontinental ballistic missiles, with ballistic missiles being shot off boats, maybe from shipping containers and these sorts of things. What are they, Special K containers or whatever they call them? This is something that any rogue nation could deploy on North America, take out all our electronics, our electricity grid, putting us down for weeks or months. And it would be, again, without firing a shot. You don't need an invasion of Chinese soldiers like in Red Dawn and all these other sorts of videos or movies. You don't need any of that. You don't need to fire a gun or shoot a missile over us. If you cyber attack, hack into our electricity grid, take out our electronics, society would be desperate because nobody knows how to grow a garden anymore. And even if they did, nobody has seeds. Nobody has a prepper mindset anymore. They rely on the just-in-time supply chain delivery mechanisms that have worked for a long time, but do not work when there's a crisis or emergency. And society would go mad. People would go mad. They'd be starving. They'd be desperate. There would be, Mad Max murder in the streets, because when people get desperate and they need to feed their kids, if it's their life versus yours, what are they going to do? Are they going to die themselves and not take your life? Probably not. And you know what? You need to honestly be mentally prepared for that situation. Maybe it never comes, but you need to recognize that people will go absolutely stark raving mad when their devices are not working. They can't get gasoline for their generators, for more than 24, 36 hours. That goes on to a week, 2 weeks. People will get insane, and literally they will be desperate because they will be starving. So you need to be prepared, folks. And I've said that before, and I'll say it again. Get prepared. And the best way you can get prepared is to know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, because we leave this earth with nothing but our salvation through Jesus Christ. So ultimately, we may be killed for our faith. So getting a whole pile of things, they may help us for a short period, and through some of the things that the force from the apocalypse are bringing upon us, but they're not going to fix everything. And when we die, we're not taking anything with us. So are we moving into this second seal of war? I certainly believe we are. Regardless of whether the first seal has happened already, I think we're heading to a time of a great war. These things will escalate in frequency and intensity, right up until the wrath of God. But before that comes a 7-year period, the Antichrist appearing, and all these things written of in Revelation chapter 6. So be aware of it, read it, understand it, know it, get prepared. The Bible says these things so that you can get prepared, not only in your heart and mind, but physically, so that when people say, well, why are you a prepper? Why are you prepared? What do you think is coming? You can say, well, I read in the Bible that these things are coming and to expect them. And when these things do occur, people can say, how did you know these were going to occur? You can say, well, the Bible said these things were going to happen in advance. So be prepared, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.